brand.
So in starting our visit, we always like to start outside here in the centre of the courtyard. And the reason why we start here is to explain about this low wall foundation. So here in the centre of the courtyard is all that's remaining of what originally was a 5-storey building. It was a tower house, it was the home of Brian O'Rourke and his family, and they were the old Irish chieftains associated with this area of Breffni. Now Breffni covered numerous counties in Ireland. It covered parts of Cavan, Meath, Sligo and Leitrim. Brian O'Rourke and his family who lived here, they only lived in this castle for a very short time and stood him in front of the Queen. Now he was asked to apologise for what he had done. He refused to do so. Queen Elizabeth ordered that he be executed. He lost his life, he lost his home and he lost all the land surrounding. Then approximately in the early 1600s, the plantation of Leitrim occurred in this area. That meant that the old Irish chieftains living here, they lost their lands to the new English settlers. So the family who rewarded this castle and 1,000 acres of land surrounding were called the Parkes family. And they came from Kent in England. Now when they moved in here, it is believed that they changed the style of the castle. So first of all, they took all of the stone from O'Rourke Tower House. They used this fine stone and they built this manor house here to the right-hand side. Now this was the home then to the Parkes family right up to the late 1690s. That's when the castle was then abandoned, let go into ruins for well over 300 years. So local farmers from the Renmore area. And their job in the summers of the 1970s. In the room of the castle you notice a large fireplace similar to this one here on my right hand side. And this was the method of heating for the family in the 17th century. Now downstairs where you watch the audiovisual presentation and where the reception is today, that's where the kitchens and stores were. The bedrooms then were on the top floor. You will notice right throughout the castle quite a lot of lovely Irish timber. It's called Irish oak. Now it came from 2 counties in Ireland, Longford and Tipperary. The vast majority of the Irish oak, as you can see, is held together using the old traditional methods of wooden pegs and dowels. Now also during the restoration work they had to replaster the interior walls, and it's quite similar to the old style. It's made up of sand, lime, water and horsehair, and the horsehair has been used in order to bind all the other materials together. Now the Parkes family who lived here, the first of the Parkes to arrive in Ireland was a man called Roger Park. He was here in 1601. He was married to a lady called Alice Jones and they had 2 sons. Robert, who lived here in this castle, and William, who lived in a place called Dunalley, which is quite close to Sligo. Now we do get quite a lot of visitors coming back here to the castle with the surname Parkes, and quite a lot of them have actually found their names on this family tree that you see here to the right. We have no information on his first wife. Originally they were an English family, but they lived in County Roscommon. Captain Robert Park himself is over on the left hand side, and as you can see he's actually sitting beside the table. Now you will notice that in his left hand he is holding a quill. Now this indicates again to us that he himself was the left-handed man. And that's why he originally had a spiral staircase designed especially for himself. Standing beside Captain Robert Park is an example of an Irish farmer. He's dressed in the clothing we call the Irish traditional tweed. Now, dressing in that type of material years ago, it indicated that you were not a very wealthy person. Now, today, if you wanted to buy that material, as you well know, it's very expensive. And it's called the Irish tweed. And the vast majority of people in this area, when they want to get the Irish tweed, they actually normally go to McGee's in Donegal town. Now, you will notice in the centre then we have two of Captain and Mrs. Park's three children. We have young Robert Jr., who was the only son to Captain and Mrs. Park. He is playing a musical instrument and he's sitting on the floor. Beside him then is a young girl who is dressed in an orange dress, and she's the youngest member of the family, and her name is Mary. She was also known as Maggie by the local people in this area. Now, there's a very sad story about these two young children. The two of them, unfortunately, they drowned tragically on a boating accident out in Lochgill in the year 1677. They were only aged 14 and 16 years of age when the accident happened. Now, there's one person missing in the exhibition, and that's the eldest girl. So she was the person who inherited the house and the lands when Captain Robert Park passed away. Her name was Anne. At this period of time in history, she was actually living in Sligo at that time, and she was married to a man called Francis Gore. They had 12 children, 9 sons and 3 daughters. The eldest son, he automatically inherited everything, the house and the lands, and his name was Robert Gore. So he was the last person to live here in this house in 1691. Now, we don't know the reason why he left here. He just departed the house at the end of the year, he moved back to Sligo, and he lived with relatives. Never came back to live here. Now, the Gores held on to the house and the lands until the 1800s, but nobody lived here after 1691. And the importance of a person. The bigger your wig, the more important you were. Hence the term, you're a big wig. Corresponds with the spring on the lid. As soon as the wee mouse enters in through one of those 4 holes, it activates a spring. The lid shuts down, it chokes the mouse, and that's how he dies. Now, that's a very small box. It has only got 4 holes. Years ago, you could actually get boxes with 12 holes to the side. They had a wooden box like this, and it was always kept underneath their very long dress. So no one needs to know they're warming their feet. And also, when they were traveling, years ago, when they were traveling from village to village or town to town in their carriages, they always had a box like this inside in the carriage. Now, you're probably wondering, how did they heat it up?
Yes. Exactly.
Well, years ago, they took hot coals or a hot brick from the fire. It was placed down into the box. The box is lined with metal inside. So the heat was generated from inside the box, continuing up through the small holes and towards our feet to keep them warm.
That's very interesting.
You also might notice that the ladies and the gentlemen, they are all wearing makeup. And this was very popular years ago. The whole reason for wearing makeup, which was actually seen here, was the master bedroom for Captain and Mrs. Park. Now, there was also another room directly up above. As you can see, the doorway on the right-hand gable and the 2 large windows to allow the light through. So this would have been extra accommodation for the family in the 17th century. Now, the main reason why the actual floorboards were not replaced here in the 1980s during the restoration work, if they were actually present, then you would not be able to appreciate such fine craftsmanship. Approximately 50 craftsmen worked here during the restoration work in the 1980s. They restored the castle between 1982 and June of 1990. So it took 8 years in total from start to finish. Approximately €1 million. That was the cost of restoring this castle at that time. Now, the main reason why this castle was chosen for restoration work is because it's one of the best examples of a plantation manor house of the 17th century in the northwest of Ireland. In the centre of the room here is a scale model of the castle. It will show you the condition of the site midway through our restoration work. So the first thing they had to do was put a new roof on the castle. So as you can see, again, they used the traditional Irish oak. I mentioned that it came from Longford and Tipperary, but it was all treated in a place called Mount Bellew in your own county of Galway. Now, initially back in the 1600s, there was 4 floors in this tower. The holes in the walls up above will indicate to you where the floorboards would have gone. So that was room number 1. You're now in room number 2, and there are 2 more rooms directly below. When the Parks family were granted this castle, they were granted 1,000 acres of land surrounding, so they needed to protect the house, the family and the lands. So up to 50 soldiers were placed here in this castle. So we estimate approximately 8 to 10 soldiers would have slept in this small room. Now the way they would have slept at that time, in a circle on the floor. So you lie on the floor on a bed of straw, you place your feet in the centre of the room and your head goes out towards the wall. These are the ropes that I mentioned earlier on, blocking off the doorway out of the the lobby entry, or you have the direct entry. A lobby entry is when you walk in the entry. As soon as you walk in the front door, you're straight into the kitchen. It was also used as a A lot of them were kindly donated to the castle by local people in the northwest of Ireland. The old bellows that we have here is one of our oldest pieces on display. It's made of leather, it's over 140 years old, and it's still in working order. It was actually used by a blacksmith 4 years ago when he came here to the castle as part of National Heritage Week. So the day that he arrived here, he decided he would have put on a display for our visitors. So he lit the fire, he used the old bellows. Now he did set the fire alarm off twice. We managed to get that under control. We got rid of some of the smoke, we got a great fire going, and he made quite a lot of interesting pieces. He also used the old anvil and he used the old vice. Now this is a poker that he left behind for us, and that's one piece. Everything else that he made, all the visitors that were here on the day, were the ones that got to take them home. The fine art of thatching. Now the first thatch roof went on this building in 1985. It was unfortunately damaged by a small accidental fire in the summer of 1999. The stick that I have in my hand, it actually comes from the tree called the hazel. But up above we have sticks from all different types of trees. And the whole reason for using different types, because years ago you had to use whatever you had in your area. So as you can see, they're all approximately 4 to 6 foot in length. We call them the Irish wattles, and that's layer number 1, and that's your support for your roof.
Good.
Down the steps in. Were you here before? Oh Lord, it is a bit of a climb. Were you here before? Were you here last time? Oh, wait a minute, we'll put in a bit.
That's it.
No,
one sheet.
Only
one sheet.
Oh, look at this. One sheet. You'd have to get that one in with the ice cream. Yeah, I'm growing my mouth. I'm not.
We've loved.
Lovely. Very nice. Are you doing all down there?
Yeah, it's good.
Don't put it up on Facebook though.
This is a video.
Yeah. Oh, it's a video?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, well, we have to say.
You don't have any license, need any license from me.
Oh, I'm glad, because it would have been sad. I saw you walking on the Dublin Road with them there a couple of weeks ago.
Last time in Sligo. Yeats run.
We don't know where we are in Sligo.
No, we're in Yeats. Look at it up here.
We're in Leitrim.
Oh yeah, yeah. No. I know, I don't go. The blind man is walking.
Here in today, of course,
It was winding down the mine and there was only 2 companies left and about 130 people. So,
And mostly from the area around.
it would be all the local, so, and it was all handed down for generation.
Back at the sun, like.
Yeah. It was only employment around.
I suppose that song is out.
Now, I'll get back behind us here now and there's a little rock, small rock bore. You see, if you were bringing cables in the tunnel, you could bore little holes into it and put in plugs of timber and tie up the cable. You get me? That was a small bore like that. Yeah, and that's the nail picked in for that. That's them as T-pieces then for ring them again if you wanted them to start. Everyone he filled like that. He'd put his own tag on it like that. When that hutch of coal landed outside, she was weighed on a weighbridge. And every young fella had his own special tag. Some fellas would have badges like that and his number stamped on it. Other fellas might have leads or bottles and a bit of a twine on them, and more fellas might have rings of rubber and a twine on them as well. We called them pens. He'd have around 40 of them. And when he'd land out going home in the evening, his coal was weighed, them tags was hung up on a nail again for the next morning to bring them back in the next day and start putting them on your foot.
Helmets that time, they were provided with helmets, yes?
No, you had to buy your helmet and your lamp and shovel and the whole lot. That we stopped there, okay. But in my father's time, they had no helmets. It was a cap they used to wear. And you get an old peatin or a treacleton and flatten it out with the hammer and sew it onto the peak of your cap and put 2 heavy bands of elastic round on it. And that just to hold the lamp and their cap. Put the rail down into it and roof the railing in that rock overhead. So when the driver started taking his rope back into the machine again, this rail, it would hold the rope tight there and the machine would pull itself right up to the rail. Out here on the other end of the drill, for it was bored in that rock there, and that would keep the dust down, water coming out there for it was bored. Because the miners bored that rock on this mountain for a lifetime. They were boring it dry and they got this rock dust and that's what killed a lot of the miners. That rock was a danger. The knives of that hammer in here was shocking.
Bit of deafness.
Oh yeah, that's right. We used to drink water. Nice. Oh, no, nice one. Thanks for the light.
Look well there, Mary. Smile, smile.
Smile, Martin. You're beautiful. You're beautiful.
Long way. This way. This way. Look what's up here. Wait.
Smile, Bertie. Take off the glasses for once. Take off the glasses for
Not a
once.
pretty sight.
Ah, no, come on. You all know I love the wine.
You like.
It's very difficult.
You have to have the killer fellas in there, you know that. Joe, you know that? You have to have the killer fellas in there, don't you?
I'm more experienced than her.
Thank you, Joe.
Say something nice. Joe McCarthy.
That's nice. Oh, God.
Hello, John. How are you? It's nice.
Great to be here.
Yeah, Tom is in the minority of one.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Exactly. I think you'll be spoiled.
My name is Margaret. Phil. Yes. Say something, Mary. Yes. Say something.
Let me lay down beside you. Let me always be with you. Come, let me love you. Come, love me again. Ooh, 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 ooh. Let me lay down beside you. Let me always be with you. Come, let me love you. Come, love me again. Take warning if you can, and never roam the streets at night, breaking laws of God and man. For if you do, you'll surely rule, and you'll find yourselves like me, serving up for 20 years in the penitentiary.
I know sweet love
wild delight. The roses of her cheeks will lend enchantment to the sea. And when the shamrocks wear the dew, I'll wed my sweet Colleen. For two Irish eyes are smiling, and an Irish heart is pining, when I kissed her and caressed her in the gloaming long ago. Loving Irish arms will press me, and to Irish love caress me, and sweet Irish lips will bless me when it is moonlight